The Slave Trade by Mariah Dawson. The steady drumbeat of the African drums mimic the racing heartbeat of the Portuguese men who stealthily hunt them. The drummers don't know what will befall them, the hunters oblivious to the colossal factor this hunt will play in the world's memoirs. Then, with a small insignificant leap, unheard over the drums, a cry vividly cutting the tense frantic air, a whip stinging the first vulnerable man, a red trickle down the slick brown back. The hostilities have begun. The African shore is littered with crude huts, full of the native inhabitants who used to freely roam these beaches, now trapped in these scrawny shelters. Their old life is so close, just out of their grasp, and yet they have already left it, leaving it so far away. These people are considered to be barbaric and uneducated, only fit to do the white men's bidding. Just because their customs do not match your frills and high collars, just because their language is unknown to you, just because you cannot admit that you don't understand. A hunter wanders up the beach with the background of soothing waves crashing, masked in a fog of screams and groans. With each step he wonders, how did I come to this land in search of a simple cooking spice, and instead am returning home with a substitution of people? People who will be sold like the unfound spices to unwillingly serve Prince Henry and many others. People who will be traded for simple everyday things. A person is not worth the value of a cowrie shell, a beating heart the same price as a hat. How did I involve myself in this horrendous dealing? Little does he realize that in a short time the whole of humanity will be so consumed by the greed of being able to do nothing, that he will be just one pawn on a whole board of traitors to the human race. The dying slaves strewn on the sand, dragging their shackles across the splintering wooden decks of this prison boat, not knowing that this is their last breath of fresh air, their last glimpse of sunlight before they are shoved into a dark, decrepit hold, only fit for the mold that crawls up the walls, packed on top of each other like sardines. But sardines are dead fish. Surely humans are not supposed to be treated like canned, dead fish. And how can anyone be expected to survive this appalling ordeal, being fed gruel too sour for even the seagulls to pick at, wallowing in their own filth, the living men and women crammed up against the cold, clammy bodies of the dead, and finally, when they are allowed a glimpse of the sky, allowed above, just so the dead bodies can be thrown overboard, when they finally think that freedom has come, they are doused in salt water as a washing, but the salt only works its way into their wounded flesh like small sharp needles. Then, on empty nauseous stomachs and numb aching legs, they are forced to dance. It is supposed to be exercise. The captain thinks it is a favor. But how can you dance your native dance while trapped on a boat in the middle of the ocean? This privilege is just a torture device on the mind, making you think of home, causing many to jump over the side, thinking their families are waiting just around the river bend, while these men and women are being tortured. Across the world, in the likes of another universe, a man stands on the shore of the new world, as he calls it. He is creating a colony with an added benefactor, the leisure of having these people come to do your work, this trade that supports his process of industrialization while managing to stifle and destroy the African's economic development. An amazing feat, he thinks, as a slow smirk paints his face. I'm Christopher Columbus, and I have all power in this new place that is mine. Although he thinks he has found the ideal to all of his problems, he knows nothing of what will begin. As the greed for this luxury spreads, another horrendous sprouts out of this horrific. A mad profusion of wars occur, all fighting to grab their few remaining brothers in this humanity and force them into slavery. All sane people spread to an angry rush for power. The few Africans left are reduced to hiding, too weak to fight again, no strength left to overcome the waves of hatred and abuse thrust towards them like torrents of acid rain. Although this loathing is clearly showed, somehow the rest of the human race fails to notice, and the mad rampage for obstruction of the human race continues. Some passer-by, involved as little as possible, starts to wonder when this crazed charge will stop, but it still goes on. Hidden beneath all the wars, fighting and pain is a ghastly irony, as it really is, although they revolt and turn back, try at anything to make the white men stop this never-ending work. They are still forced to work at such an excruciating pace that the masters' profits grow. Now the slaves are fueling new trips for more capture of their own kinsmen. The circle of damage is in full rampage and does not cease. This atrocious trade degrades the slaves even more to the price of a piece of manila, or even worse, an unnecessary, compulsory, and even addictive obsession. So begins the trade of the tobacco, and the rum, which in turn fuels for more slavery, more hurt, corrupted bodies, and abuse, all for some fanciful purchase that a man has a hankering for. But of course this trade cannot stop there. Now, with the excuse of trading more needed products, the trade is in a full uproar, and the profiters, blinded by their infiltrated greed, have no notice of the pain and suffering they have caused. And so these poor souls are carted from their homeland in the Gulf of Guinea, all the way to the foreign lands of Cuba, Jamaica, Charleston, and even Boston. Then some are left, bedraggled and confused with their masters, in those strange places, while the remaining group is sailed to Great Britain, where the powerful European masters are to further torment their fragile state of mind. This vicious triangle runs on, never stopping for even a second, and the masters, who have been left with so many opportunities to stop, look back and think, did I do the right thing? All having continually passed up every one of those opportunities, living on in their mad lives as their gluttony consumes them. This trade, so full of greatness, and yet remaining so twisted, making a mark on history that could never possibly be erased or faded, a simple decision to intrude on others' lives, even a misunderstanding, if you will, all leading up to this dark stain in the fabrics that weave this world's intricate body of history's creation.